right, here we go.
Gotta go for it.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of Attempted Optimism Podcast, where we're just trying our very best. And this week, we're just continuing our conversation with Dakarai about racism, African American lives, us as white people learning. And so we hope you enjoy as we continue this conversation.
It's funny. My last appointment when I was in Kentucky, I was walking through Walmart, and this lady was just eyeballing me like every aisle I went down. And I had my wife and my kids with me. And she's just eyeballing me, looking at me. So I was like, what is happening? They honestly have never seen a couple at that place, had never seen a couple and a father who actually liked to play with his kids. And
Wow.
it was just shocking, the information that I got. It's just, so I don't mean to bore y'all with stories, but it's just, this is the life that I live.
Yeah.
And so when I hear people say, but yeah, all lives matter though, but you have not walked in these shoes.
Yeah.
You know, like, you can say that, but does your all include all the struggles that I've had to go through? Does your all include all the hurt that I've had to go through? And it doesn't. And so when I look at Ahmaud Arbery and I go run every night,
Yeah.
it could have been me, man. Like, that could have been me. There's so many stories of getting pulled. I got pulled over in front of my house one day, literally in front of my house. I parked the car, got out the car, guns drawn, police everywhere. And I'm like, what is happening right now? And the police officer said, where are you headed? I said, I was a jerk. I said 5206 Woodland View Circle. That was my house at the time. And he said, where's that at? I said 5206 Woodland View Circle. And he looked around and looked at the address and realized, oh wait, he's at home. Well, get on the ground. Oh, okay, like I'm at my house.
Yeah.
And then when he realized I was a college student, I had somehow had Salvation Army stuff all over my car, and then he realized, oh, you're one of the good guys. Literally, I had one of them say, oh, you're one of the good ones.
Yikes.
There's a category.
Hey, do you know what you can't say? You can't say that.
You're one of the good ones. Yikes.
You're one of the good ones. And I wanted to really turn around to him and say, well, you're one of the bad ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can't, because I need to get in. I gotta make it to the next day. You know. And so that's the life. So again, like I said, I love the fact that you guys are having this conversation, because it makes me it encourages, at least for me, it encourages me that there are good people in this world.
I mean, I think it's necessary. Like, I could probably sit here and listen to you all night just because I don't have a concept or an understanding or an idea. And I think, like, I think it's wild that, like, we as a church can't grasp this. You know, like, when I listen to your stories, they really bring me heartbreak, a lot of them, which I'm thinking is what they should. You know, I feel like the Lord's heart would break when he hears the stories of the things you've gone through. But, like, it blows my mind when, especially Facebook, and you know, Justin, if you listen to the podcast or you just listen to me and Justin talk, you know I hate Facebook. Like, Facebook's like the devil's breeding ground. But you know, like, I just get on Facebook every day and I just see Christians. I know who just aren't grasping this. And part of me wants to, like, stick up and be like, well, maybe it's just ignorance. But then you go to the comment sections and you see African American people helping and trying to educate, and then it's their next comment showing once again they're not getting it, and it's never ending. And you just, like, you know, when I put it into context, specifically, like, because as Christians we talk a lot about abortion and we talk about the killing of unborn babies. Like, if during a heated moment, you know, say the legislators passed a bill that says abortion is, you know, totally okay for everybody and they'll abort up to 10 months, you know, the day before, is, you know, and Christians spoke out about that. And if I went on every post and went, but hashtag all lives matter, like, I promise you, like, I'm getting a phone call that says either 1, take it down, or 2, thank you for your time with the Salvation Army, you're no longer welcome here. Like, if I go on every post of abortion and say, well, all lives matter, you know, like, the babies, they're great, but, you know, what about the other people? What about the other injustices?
That's one of the hardest things to see. Like, for me, every time I think about that, it's the argument of the people, and I have seen people I know and have met and shook their hands, and they're the same people that say stuff like, but look at his criminal record.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've seen that.
Are you freaking kidding me?
I've seen that
all
so many
matter.
times. I've seen that
all
many
criminal
times.
lives matter. You're pro-life.
Yeah, it's wild.
But his criminal record, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I said to my wife the other day, I said, imagine living in 1940s Germany, and people and Jewish people are getting killed every day, but you went and said, you put your sign out and said, but hashtag all lives matter. Like, that's the extent that we're here at. Like, if you look at, and I don't know the numbers, and I'm not going to pretend to know the numbers, but the injustices that happened then for the Holocaust victims, the Jewish people in those days, this is basically what that is for our world today. Like, African Americans continue to be killed in this country day after day after day after day. Like, Justin and I just talked about it, I think, just not on a podcast, just off stream, like the other day, about like, did you see the next shooting? It happened like 2 days after George Floyd. Like, did you see the next death? And it's like, but like,
it's ridiculous.
If
you don't know what one you're talking about.
Yeah.
123 people have died by the hands of the police since George Floyd. Since George Floyd. And I think they said almost 45 of those were white, and the rest of them were black or like they're. It's crazy to me. And people are like, well, it's an even match. No, it's not.
No.
There are 13%. African Americans make up 13% of the population in the United States. Yeah. Yet we are on par with you of the amount of death by police officers. Let's think about that. If it's 50-50 and I'm only 13%, the proportions are way off here.
It's not quite right.
We're talking about
and
again, like I said, it's some people who just don't get it, man. Like it's just like it's arguing with a brick wall.
Yeah, it is.
And sometimes you need to take a hammer to that brick wall, and sometimes you don't. And I don't know when to do that. I honestly don't know when to take a hammer to it and when not to. And that's the struggle that I've had. Is like when do I speak to him in this way, or when do I just avoid that conversation because it ain't no help.
Well, I feel like in some ways, just sitting here like talking, us three talking, in some ways I feel like we are kind of taking a hammer to a brick wall, because I know that when I post this on my Facebook, for better or for worse, I'm gonna get backlash from that, and I'm okay with that. Like, because the other thing I've seen a lot of is like I'm not going to say what I was just going to say. I'll leave that to myself. But what I'm seeing a lot of is people saying, well, we need to stop politicizing this. But at the end of the day, we're not talking about politics. Like, we're talking about people's lives. And it's wild to me that we're trying to, like, sweep this under the rug by saying, well, let's not talk about politics. This isn't politics to me. Like, I'm not running for a platform to become the governor of Texas. I'm trying to make sure people don't die tomorrow, and whatever that takes. Like Justin and I talked about on the first one, like, and Justin tweeted something at me the other day. Said, "Is this what you're talking about?" We talked about the police reform that we're seeing in different places. I read a fascinating article about, I believe it's a place, I think it's Camden, New Jersey. I could be wrong on that place. Do not quote me on that. But there was a city in like 2014 that abolished their police department. They started over. And they basically required much more stringent rules, and they also required a significantly larger force. And what was fascinating about the article I was reading is they said when it first started, when they first rebooted, and they said, we're not doing the police as we've always done it, they said there were actually more arrests because there's more people on the streets going, well, that looks like a crime, maybe we should arrest him. But they said once they kind of got it figured out, they found out that crime rate dropped dramatically, because there's this understanding of, well, there are these civil servants, or if you want to call them police officers, on every corner, and they're going to see what I'm doing, but they're not carrying guns, and they can't use lethal force, and my case is always going to go to the courts, and all of a sudden these major crimes just dipped. People recognize, like, oh, there's a good thing happening. Like, I'm not going to get killed for walking out my front door, and so, like, if that's what it takes, then let's try it out. And if it doesn't work, then bring back, the police force.
It's not working now.
Yeah,
it's not working now.
If it doesn't work, then we'll see. But every other country has pretty much proven it does work. There's the level of requirement to become a police officer in any other country in the world is significantly higher than here. I just saw some statistics, and they were accurate. I did the fact check on them. It takes between 2 and 3 months to become a police officer, give or take, and all you have to do is have a high school degree. And that's terrifying to me because, like, when I think about my own life, like, I could have become a police officer at like 18, because I dropped out of college when I was 19 years old. And I should never have been allowed to be a police officer at 19 years old. Like, I think of things that I did when I was 19 that very easily could have landed me in jail, or on the flip side, if I was African American, could have very easily landed me being killed, because they all involve nighttime, and they pretty much all involve trespassing on private property. And I had the cops called on me a few times in those cases, but I could have just become a police officer. Like, I could have. And, I think we certainly, if we're going to keep the police as they are, let's at least raise the standard of what we're asking for.
And I think most people, I won't say everybody, but most people are like, they don't really want to get rid of the police. They just want you to do better.
Yeah,
they just want you to be better people and do better. And like you said, if you had better education, you might do better. If you know more, you do better. That's just the way it works. Yeah. So if you had to, it takes 4 years for a person to bring a life into this world. It should at least take you 2 to take one out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's just like. And for me, I just, it's just crazy to me that you like. I saw the same statistic, and I was like, I cannot believe that it takes so little effort to do that. To put a gun in somebody's hand and say, "Hey, you're responsible for the authority of other people's lives." Like, that just makes no sense to me at all. But I don't know. I don't think people are really going, "Hey, let's get rid of all of this."
No.
And like I said, I know some really great police officers. Yeah. Really great police officers. But I also know a whole bunch of knuckleheads.
Yeah.
Who
I agree with you.
I'm not saying that to be jerk though, but I know. Think about how many of these kids, like 18 and 19-year-olds, have never got any power, have never had any authority, and you put a gun and a badge in their hand and say, people have to listen to you now.
Yeah. Oh, I think of, I was talking to, I think my mom the other day on the phone. I said, I can think of people that I grew up with that I know became police officers, like when we graduated high school or like college, and I'm like, that's terrifying. Like, I grew up with those people. I know what we did. I know what they were like behind closed doors, and and here they were. I mean, and again, you just like you said, like, I know a ton of good police officers. Like, working with the Salvation Army, if there's one thing that I've found is like, I know a lot of great police officers. I knew people that like I could call personally to come and help me with a situation. That I wouldn't dial 911. I'd just dial their phone number. They'd come show up. They were police officers. So I'm not saying they're all bad. Let's get rid of them, burn them at the stake. It's just simply the fact that obviously there is something wrong. And I do think, like, if we saw this, I say that, but if we saw this anywhere else in culture in the world, we saw something so drastically wrong that just wasn't working, everybody would be quick to fix it.
Yeah.
But I think because we talk about people that should be the best in society, should be the best, and they're not always, and all of a sudden people are going, well, don't mess with that. We don't talk about that subject. We don't want to talk about the police. It's like, well, we have to. Like, if you see something wrong, you have to talk about it. At least speak out about it.
Have a conversation.
Yeah, and
it's not. And I say this, it's not just the police as well. There's just so many other systemic things that are happening that affect so many different aspects of life. People talk about the crime rate. When you put a whole bunch of people in a low income, impoverished area, make it that they can only live there, and then take all the jobs away from there, and don't give them a place to jail jobs, and then you introduce drugs into that area, and you introduce the fact that I'm looking for the same dollar that he's looking for, and we're going to fight each other to get to that dollar because I have kids to feed. Of course, the crime rate.
We've been watching the same videos.
I was gonna say the same thing. I think I've been watching some videos that speak to that. So yeah,
it's just.
But that's 100% the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so many things that happen like that. That you want things to change. I saw this poster at the protest that I was at, and it was a picture of a little kid holding this poster up on another poster, which is weird. But he had a little kid holding the poster up, and it says, "They take away our fathers, but then they make fun of us for not having them." That's just what, like, think about how many little kids have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Like you don't take care of your kids, and black men don't take care of their kids. They have all these babies and they're doing all this other kind of stuff. But when the
family system
and all of that's happening, but you either lock us up, for something that we're just trying to make $1. Like, you know how many possession crime people are in prison right now for just possession?
Yeah.
Alone, not intent to sell, not intent to do it,
Yeah.
just possession, and you lock them up and take that father out of the household.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you talk about the ones who you don't even make it to prison. They get killed or shot or something like that.
Yeah.
Or they're out in the street trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, and they get killed by another person trying to make $1 out of 15 cents.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you survive in a lifestyle like that?
My question to you, Dakarai, is how many of those kinds of situations can you actually name people?
Every single one, and probably 1,000 of them. Not 1,000, but I'm being
people
dramatic.
Because I know some of these stories, and I know some of those are a lot of those. You know people and have people that have been in your life that have been sent to prison for the dumbest of reasons for their lives.
People make mistakes, and if you do a crime, you should do the time. I'm not ever going to negate that at all. But when you make the crime so punishable that their lives are over, they're over, and then after even if they do get out, they got to register as a felon. And now they can't get a job, which means they go back to doing the same thing they do.
Can't protect themselves.
We're going you put us in a cycle of poverty that we're trying to get out of.
That's something, if you don't mind me saying, that's something I just recently learned about that I was really fascinated by, because not having really an understanding of like how, I guess, the criminal justice system works and everything. Like, I was recently sitting in a homeless coalition meeting, and they were talking about how, because we have a jail system here in the town I live, and the problem that people out of jail have is when they come out of jail, they're put on parole, they have to have a physical address, right? And to get a physical address means you normally have to have a job. You have to have a way to pay to live somewhere. And what I found out is that if you do not have a physical address somewhere the parole officer can visit you, that you live, you go back to jail. And my mind was really blown by that, because I'd never heard of that. And I was like, so ultimately what we're saying to people, and specifically in the case of African Americans, because the crime rates are higher, as we talked about, what you're saying is a guy gets out of prison, he can no longer be hired because most people don't hire felons, and most of the time he has no place to go back to because nobody wants that burden, so he just goes back to jail. And I was like,
and does this cycle.
And I was like, how have we not fixed that problem? Because
I'm going to make it even worse for you. Most shelters won't even allow you to use their address as a permanent shelter.
Correct.
As a permanent resident.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now what are you like? Where do you go? Possibly have a place to stay.
Yeah.
But I can't use it as a permanent address because they won't let me. Now what do I do? Which means they show up and I still have to go back. It's a never-ending cycle because of one mistake you make.
Yeah. And in some cases, a very small mistake, like possession, compared to,
And like, I'm okay with doing, if you do the crime, you do the time.
Yeah.
But don't make it so punishable, especially in the case of, like, there's so many studies, and you can go and Google it if y'all want to. But there's so many studies of two people by the same judge, same crime, but the black guy gets more time than the white guy does.
I've seen that.
Or, that, and that's just, when we say systemic racism, that's what we're talking about. These things happen in the criminal justice system. They happen in the education system.
Yeah.
The reason why I went to an all-white school, because the school district was better.
Yeah.
They got better education than that. Like at the school that I would have went to in high school, if I was the one I was supposed to go to, I'd have went there. I probably would have been a straight A student. I just would have, because the way I was. My grandma would have drilled, you gonna sit there and do your homework, you're gonna do. I would have been a straight A student. But at the school I went to, I was a B average student. because of the level of education that I was getting was a little harder than the one that I went to. But that's the one that the police are at every day. There's fights every day because it's in the hood, it's in that area, and my grandmother wouldn't allow me to go there. She said, you're gonna be better than this.
Yeah.
And if everybody doesn't have a grandma like I got, my grandma gonna be mad. She got all this hype right now. But
is she on Facebook? Can we tag her in this later? So
she would not even see it. But anyways, it's just to me, this is the. Like, if there's nobody who cares about the fact that my education system's jacked up, the criminal justice system that I end up falling in because my education system is jacked up, and then on top of that, I am verbally and emotionally and all these, I'm assaulted every day from every different angle, and I still have to be a good American.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're sick of it. We're tired of doing this. It's stressful. It's really stressful.
I can't imagine.
And being and here's the crazy part. And being, I hope I don't get an email for this, but being in the organization that we're in is getting even more stressful.
Yeah.
Because I have to see people that had taken the same covenant oath and the same thing that I have, and they care less about how I feel, how I look, how I act. They could care less.
Yeah.
Or even worse, they tell you how you feel.
Or how you're supposed to feel.
I wasn't even gonna go there.
No, I mean,
that happens. That happens there too. Yeah.
I mean, I think there has to be a level of boldness here. Like part of the reason I even, if I'm honest, had the guts to say anything, have a conversation with Justin at least, and now with you, is that, I looked at Marion Platt, and I saw the stuff that Marion Platt talked about and the boldness that he came out with, and realized I need to stand with him and stand with, because I said it to somebody the other day in a text message, because they said, I'm not sure that I see racism, and I just said, here's the thing, I may never see it firsthand. I may never meet somebody who has seen it firsthand. I could go my whole life, especially if I still lived in Kansas, and never meet an African-American person who experienced racism or was willing to admit that they experienced racism. But the reality is when I look on Facebook and I talk to friends and I talk to Marion Platt, my friends are coming out and saying to me, I am experiencing racism. So the least that I can do as a Christian is just to stand up and say, I see you, I hear you, I want to speak out in any way I can. I mean, because even if I never experience it, it doesn't matter. If a friend is saying to me, this is happening to me, why would you not step up and say something? And ultimately, we're seeing people won't do that. People, whether it's self-image or just flat out denial, they're not willing to come out and just be like, I support you, I stand with you, and that's heartbreaking. I can't imagine it from the perspective of you who has experienced these things.
Here's another, and on the flip side of that, I agree with you on that. As a flip side of that too, please stop apologizing for your race. That drives black people crazy.
I wondered about that. I genuinely wondered about that.
It drives us crazy, because at the end of the day, it's not your fault just as much as it's not our fault that we were born black, it's not your fault that you were born white. It is not your fault that you were born with white privilege.
That's true.
But I need you to understand the fact that you have it, and work towards decreasing it. It's on that's what I like. Stop. We don't want you to apologize for it.
Yeah.
No, even apologizing for slavery is something that okay, but at this point, apologizing does what?
Yeah,
it's a lot of good words.
Doesn't change anything.
I'll tell you what it does. It makes them feel better.
Exactly, and it drives us nuts.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be let's stop apologizing to me. Let's work with me to end this.
Stop making it about you, and let's make it about the things that it needs to be about.
So, white America, if you ever see this, stop apologizing for being white.
White
it's
America.
Not your fault.
I love that.
It's really not. It's not your fault.
Can we make that the title?
Yeah.
White America.
White America. White America. If you can hear this, that's the title.
If you can hear this, don't apologize. Help us work towards ending it. If you really care that much about it, help us work towards ending it. Don't apologize, because it's frustrating. It really is. Okay,
I can imagine. That's when you get into an argument with somebody and you know that they're not sorry, but they just say sorry because it's what you're supposed to do. You know, like, I mean, it's like, I mean, unfortunately, it's what you teach kids. You know, it's like, you say sorry now. Like, and it's like, they're not sorry. They stole that food and they wanted it. Like, that's why they did it. But, like, I feel like in some ways that's what this is. You know, it's like,
are they only sorry because they got caught?
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Like,
you know.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
They see me now. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah.
Like, stop apologizing. That's I wanted to make sure I got that out.
I appreciate that. I mean,
that's what we need.
That's something I genuinely wondered about, like, because I don't know if you want an apology. So I'm glad you said that, because, like, I think from our perspective, like, and Justin and I talked about it. It's like, this is new uncharted territory for a lot of white people.
Yeah,
like, it is. Like, I never thought I'd be sitting here having this conversation, because I didn't like I'm not educated enough. So it's like it's always helpful for somebody to help me better understand, help me know what you expect, what you don't expect, you know, the best ways to go about doing things, you know, because we're not sure, you know. That's one thing I love about Marion Platt is, like, my wife and him talked, and he sent us a bunch of book recommendations. He said, if you want a better understanding, read these books or watch these movies, because there's a lot of...
Can we put those books in the description?
Yeah, I can put some, and if you know, if Dakarai has some he wants to share, or movies, or, you know, YouTube things to, like, I've gone to Netflix and started watching. Well, I'd already seen a lot of them, but, like, and of course I'm going to draw a blank on the names of them, but the Central Park 5, there's a documentary on them on Netflix that's really heartbreaking. There's one about the kid that got arrested. I think he was 16. They sent him to Rikers Island, I believe it was. It's stuff I think we just choose not to watch because we don't want to be heartbroken. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, well, I don't want to watch that because it's sad. Well, I don't think it matters. Like, it happened, and it's happening. But we can add all that to the comments, because I think we have to. I mean, we have to. People need to have a better understanding. Dakarai's smiling, so I'm going to let him talk.
No, it's and like I said, I all those things are great, and I think people need to start educating themselves. It's so many stuff. It's so much stuff to watch. Like, it's so many good. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't know. We've been talking about this for a long time, but nobody's hit it. Nobody's hit mainstream.
It's too uncomfortable, man.
You go back and watch Mississippi Burning. Oh my gosh!
Ooh, I don't think I could do that, man.
Go watch Glory.
That's messed up. Look, I told my wife the other day. That because she wanted to watch Just Mercy. I was like, I'm just not ready for that one right now. I can't, like what you were saying a second ago, Ben. I was like, I'm one of those people. I was like, I don't think hard. I could sit. I can't be emotional right now. I need to take mine in bite-sized pieces. I mean, and just figure myself out.
I think you have to pick a time. Like, when I watched, and again, I wish I remember the name. When I watched the Central Park 5, the Netflix thing, like, I sat in my room by myself. So I could cry, and so I could digest it, and I could get angry, and because, like, my wife the other day, she said the same thing to me. She's like, we were laying in bed. She's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know. She's like, you want to watch a movie? I was like, sure. She's like, we could watch, Just Mercy. And I was like, no. Like, we're not watching Just Mercy while we lay in bed. Like a casual, like, it's not happening. Like, that's a movie I had to watch by myself so I can process it for myself.
Here's the funny thing. Here's the funny thing about this. I don't know if y'all are recording yet, but this is hilarious. Speaking of movies you have to watch by yourself.
Yeah.
There are a list of movies that we will not watch with Justin and Stephanie. If it comes up, I'm going to say no.
Okay. Because
of the fact that it infuriates us so much to the point where I'm going to turn and look at Justin and like, I don't know. I know you ain't got nothing to do with this. but somehow this is your fault. I feel like I need to slap you right now.
Like, Dominique said that to my wife multiple times. Like, we can't be there together. Some stuff we just can't touch.
It's a personal. It has to be a personal experience because
it's what you get sad about, we get frustrated about.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so like I'm like I know like, and especially it's real bad because like it makes the African American people look and go, everybody can't be like this. But we see it so much. Like, we see it so much. You start questioning every white person you come across. Now, I've met more great white people than I have. It sounds weird to say it like that. I've met more great white people than I have met bad people.
Yeah.
But when you see the bad like that, it brings back all the emotions and the feelings and everything else. And I can't watch. I would never watch. What was the last movie I think came out that I really wanted to go see, but I didn't want to go see it with anybody but myself in the movie. DiAngelo. Remember DiAngelo when it came out?
Yeah.
I remember because you and I were going to go watch that together, but we ended up not.
Because I said, if you did, I'm going to need you to sit on the other side of the.
It's a
I'm
good
gonna
reason.
sit on the other side of the theater, and we're gonna have to drive in separate cars because I'm gonna need time to process this by the time I get back to the house. It's just one of those type of movies you can't. Any of those like 12 Years a Slave, all those type of movies.
Because I would have been like, realistically, I would have been like, Quentin Tarantino is my favorite director. That was a great movie.
Yeah, and
meanwhile, I have no idea how you feel sitting there watching that, people in chains and stuff. Like that is white privilege. Yeah. That's a great movie. They did so good with that movie. Samuel L. Jackson did a great job.
What great acting. Yeah. What
great acting.
Yeah.
Yes.
The whole time I was like, man, he should have blew up everything. Like, I would have blew up everything. Yeah. That's just the type of, I would have blew up everything. Got to shot him in his kneecap, his elbows. That's the type of stuff. You know, when he shot Samuel L. Jackson in his kneecaps, I'd like shoot him in the kneecaps, his elbows, his earlobe, shoot him in every part of his body before you blow the house up.
This is the new podcast title. I would have shot him in his kneecaps.
I would have shot him in his kneecaps.
I'm just like, that's the frustration, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so many. It's crazy. But like, and I don't know where we're at. I'm gonna go back to my topic. Are we recording yet?
We've been recording. We never stopped.
Okay, good.
We need to get all that. We need to get all that.
It's all in there.
The thing that I think my topic was, what I was thinking about was, all those books are great. Like, I want people to go educate themselves. I want people to go do that. But after you get the knowledge, act, respond,
absolutely,
in the right. That's the key part for me. Is it sounds good, it sounds great. Respond, and in the right direction. You can take all the knowledge in, and I say this about Christianity. If all those lazy Christians who get in the church and receive stuff every day, all the knowledge and the stuff that we get, and then on Monday you don't go tell nobody what you heard. You hear a good movie, you go tell people. You hear a good song, you tell people. But when you hear a good word, you don't tell nobody.
Preach.
It's the same thing with this type of stuff. You hear all this good information, pass that information on. Give that to somebody else. Act upon it when it's time to act upon it. Act upon it with the voting and all, whatever you want. However you feel like you need to respond in that area, you do that. But don't just take the information and say, "Oh, that was good stuff."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's for me, and that's how I am with all, like, we can get all the books we want, we can hear all the articles we want, but until there's action behind the information, then I will be impressed.
Yeah.
A lot of people right now are impressed with what's happening. I'm not impressed yet. I'm only get impressed when people start acting the right way, in the right direction. So.
Yeah, that's actually a question I was gonna ask you. With as quickly like wildfire, everything started to spring up and everybody started to jump on the bandwagon, so to speak. You know, some I absolutely recognize have been on this train for the longest of times. But you know, like people like me that have just kind of gotten to the realization that it's not at all like I thought it was. But like when you look at social media now, especially now that we're weeks out from the murder of George Floyd, weeks out from all of these things, do you honestly feel like we're going in a good direction, or looking at social media, do you feel like we're losing traction? And I say we because I feel like I put myself into the it's probably wrong for me to do so, but I put myself into the group of people that are having conversations is what I'm talking about. And the conversations that you're seeing on social media, the posts that you're seeing on social media, the education that's out there, among all of that kind of stuff. So I guess it would be okay to put myself in there, or the three of us in there. Do you think we are losing traction in the conversation? Do you think news is like starting to try to filter onto other things, or how do you feel about that?
Well, when it comes to media, they're gonna go with the next hot thing. So that's just how it works.
Yeah.
So with that. Especially with the way our media system works and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And and for some reason when a certain so and so, the one who will not be named, he starts speaking, everybody sends the turn. I don't care if the man can say he made Juneteenth famous. What? Anyways, we'll go back to another subject.
That's a different podcast.
That's a different subject. But the thing I say, like, how does grass, like, have you ever seen people when grass grows, and the grass won't grow, they burn the whole yard before the grass starts growing back and comes back beautiful? I think we're in the burning the grass phase. I think we're everybody's on fire. Everybody's lit up on one side or the other, which is, I think, is probably a positive part of this. Like, we gotta break it all down before we can build it back up, type of deal. But like I said, I wish. I won't be impressed until we start seeing people put their money and their votes and their actions where their mouth is. Yeah. It's easy to say a lot of things. I can tell you right now, you know what? I'm a millionaire. But until I can prove to you that I am, it's just a lot of words. Yeah. It's just a lot of words. And in order to get to this point, you got to go through the word process. But I still need I need you to see some action. I need to see some I believe so strongly in what I'm saying that I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. I'm willing, so to speak, and metaphorically, I'm willing to put myself on the line. Which, when Ben was talking about it a minute ago, like, I know I'm going to get some slack for that. Yeah, that's putting skin in the game. Like, I know people are going to come at me for that. Well, people come at me. I'm appreciative of that more when you willing to know, okay, I know my community, the people that I live with, the people that I grew up with, people in my own family are going to criticize me for what's about to happen, but I know this is right. I know what's right, and I believe what's right, and I'm going to stand up for what's right. For me, that's the type of action I need to see. I need to see, I know this is unpopular on this side, but this is what's right, period. And when I start seeing that across the masses, then I will be I'll be impressed. Am I encouraged right now? Oh, heck yeah. It's a beautiful thing to look at the amount of backing that this thing has, this quote unquote movement has gotten. It's impressive to see how many people who I had no clue how they felt. No, they never, neither here nor there, have had any bad or good conversations with these people. To see them come out and say, "No, I don't think that's right." Well, that's encouraging to me. But am I impressed? No, because like I said, and I think a lot of people feel like it's a lot of lip service until we see action. Yeah, it's a lot of that, and that goes for every level of whatever, because it's.
And I can't help but think to myself, like, when you're talking, like, what is there to be impressed by? Like, because, like, when I put into the perspective of this is, like, George Floyd sparked a movement. But why specifically was it George Floyd? Because I can think of, in my lifetime, since I've been an adult, like, I can think of plenty of these incidents occurring. And that's a nice way of saying people being murdered. Black people being murdered. Like, so why now? Why has it taken 5, 10, 15 years? I would love to hear the answer your perspective.
I think I know why I'd answer that. Because we all had to sit in our houses and look and self-evaluate ourselves and have to look at ourselves. And every one of us were under quarantine, and we all had a time to self-evaluate. We had no work. We're not doing anything. Everybody is sitting at home looking at a screen of some sort in some type of way, and there's all of this happening at the same time. And when this one hit, I can't just go back to work and forget that it happened.
That's true.
When this one hit, I can't just.
There's nowhere to escape to.
Yeah, and I can't. It's a political race happening right now. This happened. Oh yeah, by the way, the Democrats and the Republicans are having a battle over here. Yeah. Like, there's nothing else to distract us. There's no basketball games. There's no baseball games. There's nothing else to distract us.
There's no singing competitions. Yeah, there's nothing.
Nothing. And you got to deal with this now. Like that. I think that's why this one hit so hard, because we have been we have been at home looking at nothing and reruns of Netflix.
That's a great perspective. I hadn't thought about that.
That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, insight. Yeah, because I really like. I've been sitting here for weeks just going like, why is this any different than anything else? Because again, there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of 10,000s of these incidents since I've been an adult, since I can think for myself, and then all of a sudden there's just this one, and I could not pinpoint why, and that's great perspective as to, like, that's why. Like, we genuinely had nothing else that could distract us from the reality in front of us. And I would argue, and I think you'd probably agree, that, like, we try to find other things to distract us from this. Like, at the end of the day, especially for me and my Facebook and the people that I regularly interact with, like, I would love to find anything else that I could talk about, but it just can't be anymore. Like, I can't allow myself to be distracted by something else. Like, we have to finally just, like, put this out there, for better or for worse. Like, if you can't see, and I'm speaking now to very specifically to Christians, if you cannot see how Jesus would not have stood up and said something about this, spoke out against this, then I'm concerned for you. As a pastor, I am concerned for your soul. I'm concerned for your heart. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Like, I am concerned. Like, because Jesus would have, and Jesus did. And he shows us time and time again in the Gospels where every time he saw injustice, he spoke up against it. And I would argue that in those days, people would have said, stop politicizing these things. Because to them, it was politics. To them, it was a part of their law. It was a part of the way they lived. It was part of their culture. So it would have been politics, if you want to call it that. But at the end of the day, he still stood up and said, like, this is not right. Like, what we see here is wrong. And people hated him for that, too. So I'd rather be on the right side of Jesus, than the right side of the people that I know. Kind of like you said earlier in the podcast. So
I'm more afraid of the Lord than I am anybody else, so it don't even matter.
I'm with you.
And that's like I said. I think George Floyd's passing was. I said that nicely. George Floyd's murder was I want to say the tipping point, but Ahmaud Arbery kind of woke everybody up. It was like, this man was jogging through the neighborhood.
That's got to be the most blatant the most blatant murder that I've seen in my living memory. Certainly in the last 50 years.
Yeah. And they tried to figure out ways to discredit it.
Absolutely.
This house where he wasn't supposed to be in. I get all of that. But what gives you the right?
Yeah.
That type of deal. And people looking at that, we were chewing over what side we were going to be on and how that made it feel. And then George Floyd happened.
Yeah. And
you were like, okay, this is enough. I don't see this is done back to back. And if it may have been 2 weeks or 3 weeks apart, but it felt like it was the day before. Like,
absolutely.
We had seen it so much that
it hadn't gone away. Yeah.
It hadn't gone away, and so then you hit that on top of that, and then he had nothing else to do. Yeah, well, guess what we finna do? We're gonna talk about this now, and it's in our face, and we're gonna have to deal with it. I think it's crazy, man. I remember a story, and I know I'm telling a lot of stories, but
that's okay.
I remember a story when I was 14 or 15 years old. I lived in a neighborhood where there was obviously gang violence and things like that. Oftentimes, my grandmother would come in the room and say, "Sleep on the floor," and I already knew what that meant. That means there was going to be gun shooting and going on outside. I knew, and it was just life. But one time, the KKK walked through that neighborhood.
Wow.
Full sheets, robes, whatever you want to call them things, cross in hand, walking down the street, all that. Full gear. And I said, there's only two ways this is going to end. Somebody's going to either die, or there's going to be a huge police presence in about 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And both happened. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But this is that. But it was easily forgot. Nobody ever said anything about it. Nobody, because we all had stuff to do the next day.
Yeah.
We all had a life to live. I had to go to school. I talked about it with my friends and all that kind of stuff, but it was done and over with. Nobody cared less about that. But when the Crips and the Bloods shot at the KKK members, you think that would be front news or somewhere?
Yeah.
Nobody cared. You know, this is one of those things that everybody had to deal with.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect storm. I say in this instance, it was a perfect storm.
Yeah. Well, listen, we appreciate you coming on and chatting with us. I'm gonna go out and say this won't be the last time we have you on the podcast, whether it's for conversations such as this or
candy conversation,
or whether we have a candy conversation. We will certainly have you back.
Do we have enough? Do we have enough for 2 podcasts?
We do.
Here
so I'm gonna split this up into 2. We have 2 weeks worth of material. It'll be perfect. And so we do thank you for being on. We appreciate you being here.
Man, my pleasure.
This has
probably been the most important podcast we will ever do.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, whether anybody listens to it or not, you've certainly helped Justin and I to better understand and become 100%. Better versions of ourselves. So
I appreciate you guys letting me come on. Like I said, I've frequently listened to you guys talk. One, because I'm friends with y'all, but 2, it was it's some very good stuff. Y'all talk about some good stuff. But that was the the last one you guys did was like, man, I wish I would have been there for that.
Yeah.
Because some of the things I'm not gonna I laughed about. It was like,
oh, I'm sure
they have no clue what they're talking about.
I 100% believe that.
But you were trying.
I first to admit.
And that's the grace and the mercy that I think, from my perspective and from my people, we got to understand that some people are just legitly trying. Yeah, and we got to extend that grace and mercy. Yeah. We got to extend that grace and mercy. You know what I'm saying? I know, that's what I love.
Amen. Appreciate you. Hey, I'm just trying to do my best out here.
Yeah. We at least got to extend that grace and mercy. Extend that grace and mercy to you guys, and allow you to grow. Because if we don't allow you to grow and we just keep beating you down every time you say something wrong, you're gonna, at some point, you're gonna go, well, I'm just not even gonna try no more.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like,
and I had a day like that, like 2 days ago, something like that. I'd seen some really discouraging stuff, and it wasn't like people of color.
Yeah,
predominantly, it was a lot of white people that were just angry about the weirdest stuff. But yeah, there is that time where you see some discouraging stuff. So I think that encouragement's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's warranted.
Don't get like this. Keep the like. I think we just need to allow people to just grow and be okay with. They're gonna say some dumb stuff. They're gonna say some incorrect things.
Hey, look at Twitter. Wow,
man. You're gonna say some. But are they trying to learn? Are they trying to educate themselves? If that's the case, then we have to allow some grace and mercy. If not, then we're no better than the older son and the prodigal son. I'm sorry. I
appreciate that. Well, listen, we're split this into 2, but thanks again. I'm going to
anytime, man.
Stop us there, and we'll hope to have you back again on a future podcast, because this has been a great time. I mean, Dakarai brings the right kind of energy. So if you're listening to this, make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Twitter. We don't ever post on Twitter, let's be realistic. And I'm not going to let Justin have an ending work, because he always does the same thing.